All right. Let it go. Let it go. Work around it. Okay, so this chapter is on digestive system. Once again, this is our tour de force of quickly running through all the systems. And I'm going to try to cover this in like 40 minutes. So I'm going to jump around and try to answer most of these questions. If not, y'all can figure them out. I think y'all can handle these. I would like to just kick off. We'll start over. I'm going to pull up to. Actually, we'll get to it here. I'll dive into it. But once we get the human digestive system, we'll talk about that first. One of my favorite questions. Number two, will probably could be an expanding question. I like to ask that one in AFP. So that one may be like a 10-point question. I'll circle that one. So digestive system. What are we doing here? What's it going to involve? We're going to have to take food molecules, bring them into our body, right? Break them down into smaller pieces that they can be absorbed, right? So pretty cool concept. So we got to ingest the food. We got to break it down mechanically and then chemically, right? So down to the building block. Now, let's discuss a little bit. Or those 4 organic molecules, everything's made out of. Remember, there's cuss words: sugar, proteins, fats, and nucleic acids, right? Okay, those are the 4 building blocks of all living things, right? Right, remember that? And we use 3 of those. Almost all the body, all animals use 3 of those: sugar, proteins, fats for energy. We don't usually break down nucleic acids for energy. We use it to make our own DNA, like use it to make DNA, or we may break it down into some other byproducts that we tinkle out, actually, we'll see. Okay, so break it down manually, chemically, and then absorb it into the body. And then my favorite one, I love talking about the elimination of food, right? Remember defecation, another name for poo-pooing, another name for number 2, right? Our actual scientific name for number 2. So we have a lot of food that can't be digested, cellulose, roughage and stuff in our diet, and we're going to excrete that also. Okay, now before we get into the iron, which will be the main purpose of the chapter here, we got to look at some other folks. Several organisms have what's called an incomplete digestive tract, where they just have one big hollow area inside. They bring the food in, they break it down, they absorb it, and then blow it out the same hole. Okay. In other words, the planaria is a good example of that. We'll see a picture of him in just a second, where he actually has one tube. Think about the hydra that just has one body gastrovascular cavity where they bring the food in, they bring it in, and they blow out the waste. So if you're dating, planaria or a hydra, you kissing them would be kind of weird. You'd be kissing the mouse/anus, right? It'd be kind of a weird place to kiss somebody. And then of course they're going to use the earthworm here, have a complete digestive tract where you have a tube within a tube, complete with mouth and anus. There's our good example of our earthworm. Here is our planaria with this one big internal body cavity with a digestive tract in here, with one opening, no mouth. Okay, pretty wild. Okay, earthworm there. Esophagus, crop, gizzard, etc. Okay. Other variations that we see in the animal kingdom are some animals are continuous feeders, and these, especially like some of the oysters and stuff, they just filter, bring water across their gills, and they have cells to pull out the food out of that. So they filter that out. Others are discontinuous feeders like us. We can eat. Well, I could be a continuous feeder, but I'm just saying. But usually, we eat 2 or 3 meals a day, right? So these guys will eat when they have the ability to grab food, et cetera, et cetera. So they're said to be discontinuous feeders. Here's our clam on the left. Here is our squid on the right. I believe the green areas are digestion. So both sides that you can see, look at the mouth, digestive gland, stomach, intestine, gonad for squeezing the food, crushing the food, kidney, rectum when the tube comes out. And I always love how they blow food right out their mouth. It's kind of weird. I mean, they're in current cycle. That always bothers me, right? Could get a little regurgitation of some of that, right? But the excurrent blowing water out does, I guess, blow it on out of the body. And then we have the squid here with this very cool aerodynamic body. All right. Other ones here, just a couple of terms, we should know those. We adapt our body structures, and especially our way to get it in the body and chew it up based on, I'm thinking like teeth here too. Omnivores can eat what? Both plant and animal, right? Herbivores eat only plants, right? And we're going to see the cows with their four stomachs or whatever, cattle, goat, and sheep have a four-chambered stomach, allows them to regurgitate solid material back up and chew the cud, right? Y'all heard that? Or they go back and re-chew it, and that allows them to break down cellulose with bacteria in this stomach so that they can get food out of grass. Matter of fact, if you're on a diet, what is the one thing every diet has in common? Besides the idea to lose weight, right? But every diet in the world says this: eat all the lettuce you want, eat all the green leafy vegetables you want, because you will die. If we lock you in this room with water and nothing but lettuce, I will outlive Catherine. Catherine will die, and I'll probably have some Catherine kebabs later over the open grill, right? I never have desire to eat one of y'all, but I'm just saying, if you're thin and starved before Fat Robin dies, I'm gonna have me some kebabs, right? Maybe some chitlins, maybe some pickled knuckles and stuff. We're gonna go for it all, right? I'm just saying, but seriously, protein is protein, but you can't live, we can't, our digestive system will allow us to live off of the nutrients in leaves and vegetables. Okay, we can't get enough sugar out of it. It's a wash. You end up losing weight, you'll die of starvation. But not the cows and stuff, the herbivores, they can eat that specifically, right? They're good at that. Okay, then we have the carnivores, right? They eat only animals, lions, obviously. But did y'all know this? Dogs are carnivores too. Probably why they want to chase everybody. But their DNA says eat. Okay, and then dolphins are carnivores. The beautiful dolphins are carnivores. Okay, that's pretty cool. They like to eat meat, and their teeth then are accordingly for that. There's the horse. When you see the indentation, mainly molars and premolars. Okay, then look at the lions and the dolphins with the big pointed teeth that they grab the animal as they kill it, right? And then ours was a nice little mix, right? All right. So we're now going to go into the human digestive system. We're going to walk our way all the way through the different tubes. I love this little picture here. And so this actually reminds me of one of my favorite teachers in college. When I took physiology at OBS a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, the teacher had nothing but short answer questions. So his whole test would be this. They didn't have online homework. We didn't have all that. They didn't have computers back then. We didn't have individual computers back then. So you had to go over to the computer center to run data or something. It's really a different time. There was this rumors of this thing called the internet that no one ever seen. Finally, actually, my first year teaching over with the summer camp, and our big end of the year, super end of camp, big blowout field trip was, I had some friends at the computer center at Miss. We took about 30 kids over to Ole Miss, and they got on the internet for the first time. They had a computer lab, there was like 5 or 6 computers, and so what do you do with it? And so one of our guys had a blueberry farm here in town. He says, "Can I sell blueberries on it?" And he put on there blueberries for sale, and there were people in Texas, California, shipping blueberries or whatever. So, and why I didn't have that Eureka moment and go, damn, Amazon, we got to sell everything on internet in 30 years. Well, I just said, screw it, it's stupid. Okay, whatever. I'm gonna go deep dive. Okay, anyway, but pretty cool, right? Anyway, he had a midterm, and we had like half the book covered like we did on this one. Or we actually covered the fourth book because we have 2 semesters. And we had like 13, 14 short answer questions midterm. The final was comprehensive, and we were freaking out. So we made up like 100 questions he could ask, wrote them all on paper, memorized them, write them down. We just sit down, write them down. Me and about 8 or 9 of us. We go in there, and the final question was 1 question test. Absolutely psychotic, okay? And I probably already told y'all this story, but this is where this actually, so I'm going to do one like this on y'all, mini one on y'all, okay? This is probably going to be a 5-point question or 10. This will be the highest point question on the file under of my teacher, number 2. So I want you to give me the digestion tract and write it all out in an outline form, and what happens each step of the way. His question was, you're laying in the bed, the alarm goes off, you get up, put your clothes on, run downstairs, eat, cook you two pieces of toast, 2 pieces of bacon, 2 eggs, grab your keys and get up in the car to go take the final. List all physiological phenomena that happened this morning and fully explain it all. Yes, I pooped in my pants, I'm not gonna lie. And yes, I felt my bacon come back up. So people started scrambling and screaming. And he had like a table up front with like, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000 pieces of loose leaf paper on it. You just go buy at Walmart. And so I think I wrote like 48 pages. But I had to just meditate. So everybody else was writing. I had to sit there for 5 minutes thinking like, how do I start this, right? So you had to do hearing, if you heard something. Then you had to explain the brain. You had to explain the nervous system. Then you got out of bed, so you had to explain how muscle contracts. So basically, that little scenario hit everything in the entire book. And then he didn't care about anatomy, it was a physiology class, so we had to explain how that worked. So anyway, we'll do this to y'all on this one, and we'll just kind of water it down a little bit. But I would like you to lay it all out and then tell me what happens at each step, and tell me where accessory organs come involved. Okay. All right, so we're going to answer just real quick here, just kind of overview. And y'all don't want to go through the rest, go through another 20 slides and go a little more detail. But basically, real simply, the mouth is where we begin digestion, right? And we have salivary glands putting mucus in and actually two things in spit. Mucus to lubricate the food and make it palatable, meaning you'll swallow it without ripping a hole in your gut, right? I mean, just think about this. Go home, grab some Doritos, put a handful in your mouth, crunch one time, swallow. And have Doritos all stuck in your esophagus, right? You'll be bleeding stomach, esophageal, taco stuff, little blades going down your throat, okay? So saliva to mix it up and turn it into bolus and swallow it. And then amylase is where we begin carbohydrate digestion in the mouth. So saliva helps us begin sugar digestion in the mouth. Then the pharynx is just a passageway to carry it back. Esophagus doesn't do much. There's no absorption and no digestion. It's just a conduct from the mouth, pharynx to the stomach. Then when we hit the stomach, this is where our food goes when we swallow. This is a turn, little bag that turns to store the food and to actually begin protein digestion here. And we're going to see in just a minute that the stomach has three of these little gastric pits down its epithelium where they make three chemicals. They make mucus to lubricate the stomach so you won't eat yourself, because you're made out of sugar, proteins, and fats, and we like to eat sugar, proteins, and fats. There's a real problem when you start to eat yourself. That's an ulcer. So you burn a hole in your epithelium, right? Or digest yourself. And that's not good. So mucus keeps that from happening in the stomach. And then two other cells make a chemical called pepsinogen, which is the precursor to the hormone pepsin, or not hormone, digestive enzyme, pepsin, that begins protein digestion. But it only converts it into pepsin in the presence of a pH of around 2. So the other cells here make hydrochloric acid, so that your stomach has a pH of 2. Now this kills most of the bad things we eat. Like we've all eaten a bad piece of chicken or steak in here that's probably contaminated, and that acid killed the bacteria. Maybe you had diarrhea the next morning or you threw it up. So most everybody's experienced food poisoning. Okay, just happens. That's the nature of it to be alive. But this is so cool to me. This hydrochloric acid kills a lot of bad things, but it must be there for this enzyme to work. Pepsin is converted from pepsinogen into pepsin. So we begin protein digestion here, and then the food then is carried to the small intestine, which you can see it here. It starts here. It's a duodenum, a jejunum, and the ileum is 3 parts, and it's very long. It's the longest part of the digestion. It's probably 27 feet of the 30, 40 feet, 30, 35 feet. And this is where we complete all digestion. Almost all the digestion completes here, and we absorb like 90-95% of the nutrients. So it's all about complete digestion and sucking all those nutrients up. And it's so long. I mean, look, ain't no little white donut ever come out the other end. Okay, y'all all eating, right? Little white donut. You go eat some donuts. Go get donuts. You never see a donut with them because that's all lard and fat. It gets sucked up, gets absorbed, maybe stored as fat on Robin's stomach, right? So a peanut through that thing, peanuts got all that shell and stuff, right? And sometimes you made little kids, if you ever change little kids down, peanuts will go through sometime on that digestion, right? So will cellulose and stuff like that. But pretty cool. Now, at this point, too, at the duodenum, where we start the small intestine, we have 2 big accessory organs have a tube leading their product into, and it mixes with the food in the lumen of the digestive tract. The liver has a huge role. We're going to talk about it. It does like 5 or 6 things, including storing sugar in between meals, producing bile that's stored in the gallbladder, what we're talking about now, and bile emulsifies fat. Bile is not poo-poo. I think some people call it bile. Bile is a chemical made by the liver, stored in the gallbladder, that it's basically Dawn detergent. It breaks down fats into smaller fat molecules. It emulsifies fats so it can be broken down. Okay, and then the pancreas, which is seen here yellow, or what kind of yellow behind under the stomach, it has a common bile duct with the gallbladder, and it produces this gastric juices, digestive juices that contain 2 big things. One is bicarbonates to neutralize the stomach acid so that you won't burn your stomach. But you can get small intestinal ulcer too if hydrochloric acid falls down. And it has enzymes to break down all 4 organic molecules. So it makes 4 or 5 enzymes to break down proteins, 4 or 5 enzymes to break down sugars, and a couple of enzymes to break down fat, and even DNAs to break down DNA. So it can be used, the building blocks of DNA can be used to build other DNA or just metabolites. But there's very little energy in DNA, so we don't really consider it a food source. Okay, now here is where I had one of my favorite moments of teaching, and you just got to take them as they come, right? But I've been doing this question that y'all going to do for about 30 years. And then one year I'm grading A and B at lunch one day. I'm trying to get them graded for some reason during lunch. And I read this answer off to my coworkers, and it was the funniest thing we've ever read. So this girl, it was a girl, usually this boy does stupid stuff in my class, but it was a girl, and she had the food going from the mouth to the esophagus to the stomach, from the stomach to the testicle, back to the duodenum. So I read it off, and I think Ms. Nickens and Ms. Lisa Strong almost had stroke. And I even embarrassed her. Probably should have got written up because I embarrassed her. When I give her a test back, I said, I have a couple teachers want you to explain digestion for women since y'all don't have testicles. Since it's so integral in your digestion up here. And so she just really got her chapters confused, right? So let's keep reproduction out of this one. Okay, we don't have a, so because it really is quite disturbing. And if women don't have testicles, how can they digest, right? I mean, it's really bad for them, right? Anyway, so keep it digestion, no lungs, no kidneys, okay? And the food don't go to the liver, it's just the liver and the pancreas put secretions that get put into the duodenum, right? So it's accessory glands, okay? And then the food goes to the large intestine, and it has got one big function: suck water out of feces. Okay, suck the water out so that we can conserve water. Which one is it? One of our childhood vaccinations. I think it's cholera. Yeah, cholera is a virus that screws up the large intestine, and you basically diarrhea yourself to death. So those infants in third world countries get the cholera, and mother feeds them, and they get diarrhea, and they die from dehydration. Very tragic. And by the way, that's why we're always very careful with infants, right? When you're little, and if you get sick, you get drink Gatorade or whatever, don't ever feed kids water. Okay, that's not a good move. Little babies should be drinking water because it would screw up their osmosis. Anyway, so large intestine, suck water out of feces. Oh, come on, listen. I mean, for us, I get paid to talk about two of my favorite words. Okay, if you suck too much water out, what do you get? Constipation. Yeah, that's right. You never got a car with daddy and you want to go to the bathroom, you got to drive all the way to the Dust Shores or something, right? You get down there and then you got to give birth to a brick, right? Right? And then how many of us got a little bug or whatever? We got diarrhea, right? Diarrhea is when the water doesn't get taken out and you got a slushy down there instead of a solid, instead of a paste, right? You get slush. Okay, not good. So anyway, rectum stores feces, stores anus to get out. All right, so let's go back through them all again now a little slower and see if we can pick up some more of the accessory organs. Salivary glands making salivary amylase, really important to begin starch or sugar digestion. Tongue used to mix the food up and form this bolus, which is the food once it's been mixed with saliva. Pharynx, conduit to the esophagus, nothing much there. Here we got the bolus. Then they changed the bolus, usually green in the old picture. Now they got it brown. I don't know what we had, some oatmeal maybe or something there. Epiglottis covers up the trachea, so you don't put food down your trachea. The windpipe is in anterior, and the esophagus is posterior to that. So in our neck, going down into the thoracic and abdominal cavity. And then another little structure, I don't think they put a picture of an open mouth, but the uvula seals off the upper respiratory so that you don't I don't know, it's either hot, feast or famine in this room. I know it's getting a little cool. But that covers up so you don't blow food out your nose. You ever see pictures of a little kid first time they eat, the little baby chair, they got a spoon, they get it in their hair, then they get it in their mouth and it blows out their nose. It takes a little practice to get that down, okay? All right, and then we get the peristaltic ways movement. So here's a good picture showing the different layers of the entire digestive tract from esophagus all the way to the rectum or to the anus. You have these three layers: the mucosa, epithelium lining, submucosa, connective tissue holding it to this muscular layer. And notice that there are two layers of muscle. One runs left and right of the tube, and that squeezes the tube right here, squeezes the tube in, and these longitudinal ones whip the tube like we're whipping a rope. And that combination of squeezing and whipping creates peristaltic waves that push the food all the way through. And vomiting is reverse peristalsis, so reverse swallow and throw it back out. There's that wave we talked about, squeezing with the longitudinal muscle, whooping it through. So peristaltic waves push the food through. Nothing but here. There's our term peristalsis. Oh, I got one more. I forgot to tell you. This is so weird. Guess what AMP covered today? Digestion, too, kind of weird. I will give y'all my special story though, since we got a good crowd here today. I have a brother-in-law it really is kind of sad. He's still alive, but he has got like Lou Gehrig disease. And they thought for a long time, and now they don't think he was, but he also was an alcoholic, or still is. And I don't think I've ever seen him so. He was not a mean alcoholic, but he always just drank beer like 24/7. He always had a buzz. He just sat in the corner, gave him a beer, and he's good. He didn't ever beat his kids or anything, but he was just pretty much a drunkard. So this is a drunkard story I'm going to tell. So if it ain't true, well, my brother-in-law who's a drunk told it, so it may be somewhat not true. So anyway, he's in the Tupelo ball. He's in the Tupelo. This is about 20 years ago in a bar, and the bar had an aquarium. And so they get around 9, 10 o'clock. So somebody bet you $50, you want $100, you won't swallow that fish. And so it ends up with a pretty good pile of money there, but maybe $400 or $500. And the guy goes, "Give that net." And the idiot, we'll call him Bubba, he whoops in there and he gets the fish. Now, how many of y'all know it's okay to swallow live fish? That's kind of brutal, but if you're swallowing minnows, it's not going to hurt you. If you're swallowing goldfish, they're collagenous, chondrichthyes. Remember the cartilage fish? He's done screwed up. This is an angel fish. That's not chondrichthyes, that's ichthyes, that's pony fish, okay? So he's got a big old starfish, the one that looks like a star or angel fish, and he swallows it, and it gets halfway down the esophagus and turns around, and he gets stuck in his esophagus. So what do you do if you're a redneck at a Bubba bar in Tupelo? You get some food and just chase it down with a burger and some chips, right? Or some French fries. So he just eats and he blows it on down his stomach. They give him his money, he's smiling, he's laughing, he starts vomiting blood about an hour later, and he died 2 days later. He ripped his esophagus and bled to death. My brother-in-law says, I've been to the funeral, I cried, it was sad, okay? And now there's a warning, don't swallow fish. Be careful. Esophagus not made to be, it's not good, okay? It's hard to get in there and fix it. So I don't know if he really died, but that's what he said he did. So I'm just going with the story, but that's a really downer. I don't want to end with that, right? I'm just going to throw that in the middle with the esophagus goldfish, angelfish story. True story. So according to my brother-in-law. Okay, here's our stomach. Let's look at that mucosa. Here are the villi down here, the rugia, the little folds, and this is the epithelium, simple columnar. And look, down in these little folds, these gastric pits, we have cells making hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen, and we begin protein digestion here. So it talks about this. It also talks about the gastrointestinal reflux disease. Anybody heard of this before? GERD or GERD? This is where you basically throw some of your stomach stuff back up in your esophagus and it burns it, and you have heartburn, and you think you have a heart attack. But it's actually this acid burning your esophagus, okay? And still, a lot of issues on how to fix that, like some drugs that we could do. Food, once it reaches the stomach, is called chyme, okay? And then as it goes to the duodenum, right? We already saw that one. We're going to see complete digestion, right? And here the liver produces the bile, the emulsifies fat, and then the pancreas. And don't forget, now the pancreas has a dual function, right? It makes endocrine hormones, right? Remember? Insulin, glucagon, so it has an endocrine function, but it has a digestive function to make enzymes to break down everything, and bicarbonate to neutralize the pH of all that acid coming into the duodenum. So pancreatic juices are very important. You got to have them to function properly. Matter of fact, one of the first signs of pancreatic cancer is these hormones, enzymes, and these bicarbonate are not produced, the buffer. Okay, the epithelial lining of the cell produce these enzymes also, and so we complete digestion and we absorb these nutrients at this microvilli. Here is the folds in the small intestines. These are called villi, and here is a slice. This is a slide of it, and these are the villi. This is where we looked at simple columnar and lab. Well, when you blow those up, and look at this, that's 100 power. This is, come on, give me a power. This is like 20,000 power. That little purple haze, that little haze edge is millions of little fingers called microvilli. And here's where we absorb our nutrients. Okay, it's here. Notice also that there is a lymphatic vessel here called a lacteal, and this is where we absorb fat. So one of the weirdest things here is that this villi, proteins, sugars, and nucleic acid get put in the bloodstream, the capsular bed. Fats are put into the lacteal. So fats are absorbed differently than protein, sugars, and nucleic acids. Has anybody heard of this weight loss pill called the Allele or Allele? Tomorrow you go to Walmart and buy it, and it was a prescription drug, maybe from 10 years ago. Here's what the drug does: it binds to these villi and prevents fat from being absorbed. So, matter of fact, if you go to Walmart and buy it, the over the counter is half strength of the prescription drug. Just go to Walmart, buy the alley, take 2 of them, take double, whatever it says, go to El Charro, get the enchilada lard injection. Highly grease at the Mexican restaurant, right? And you eat the 80 gram of fat enchilada, 40 will be absorbed and 40 will stay in your feces, which is pretty good. You just cut your calories way down out of eating this pill. So it's a weight loss pill. Stops that. And so now here's the only problem. What happens to that fat if you don't absorb it? It's going to come out in your digestion. So that could give you diarrhea or something, right? It hurts your stomach. Pretty cool one there. The other one I thought is, y'all ever heard the oil of cholesterol? Okay, this is an oil made by Procter & Gamble back in the 60s that is 5 triglycerides put together, and the human animal digestive system can't digest it. So we got an oil we can fry French fries and chicken in, and I like fried chicken, right? And it would be the same as eating raw baked chicken because it can't be absorbed in the body. So this is frankly leaking good KFC chicken. It goes right through you, and it's like eating baked chicken. That would be huge for diet, right? Probably need French fries that are equivalent of raw baked potatoes. Here's the problem. It's going to come out the other end. Okay, so it took them a long time to chemically keep it from going straight through. They said when they first made it, that you just spoonful of it, and you'd run the bathroom, and the oil would be oozing out your rectum. So they got it chemically stabilized where it stays with the food. However, the warning label, look, now why not? You say, how do I know this? Well, back in about 1995, they approved it for snacks. And so, and y'all might not remember this, because they don't use it, I don't think they don't sell much anymore. But if you're over and it's like Walmart and you see Doritos, like a bag of Doritos, let's say a pound of Doritos is $6. Right next to it would be a half a pound of Doritos for $8 or $12. So there were more expensive Doritos, but they had less of them. They fried these in the Alaska. And so I went and bought them when they first came out of Walmart. We were in this other building, and I brought like a bag of them in. And we had an office that we ate in, so we didn't have a lunchroom like we do, a little room for breaks. And one of the math teachers who retired last year, I won't call names, I want to protect this innocent Christy Water, Miss Duncan. She was also like me, had to watch her weight, but at this point she was in pretty good shape. And maybe she just was hefty, her genetics, but she was working out every day. And she said, "I don't want to." They said, "Read the label. They're like freaking low calorie, but they're real Doritos that have been fried in this oil that you can't absorb." So she ate a handful, and they're kind of like, any other chip. If you eat a handful, what's the only thing better than a handful of chips? 2 handfuls. So she ate like 3 and went to a 12:30 college algebra class. Now I wasn't in there, but a student said that she got up there at the board, started drawing, and there was a breeze that came through. Or was it a breeze? And then she turned 8 shades of red and dismissed class and ran home and changed clothes. Came back and slapped me. And I said, "Read the label. It said you may experience loose stool." No, that's not stool, it's loose. That's slushy coming out the other end. Or my favorite one, anal leakage. So you sit down to do a number 2, you pull your undergarments down and it's pretty old for you. Yeah, so my take on that was, it's kind of, and I don't drink beer, but how many of y'all like beer? Y'all minors in your father, right? But how many of y'all got a dad or somebody that likes beer? Beer is an acquired taste. I think it tastes awesome. But I think people come out, you just got to drink more of it to get where you like it. And I'm like, why? Okay, but this is like that. Once you eat it a while, your body gets used to it. But it could experience bloating, loose stool. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so pretty cool. Look, come on, people. You want to make $1 billion, you find me a pill you can take that stops this while I'm eating. And I just blow it out. I mean, there are people that have eating disorders where they throw up, and that's bad for your upper body. Little blow up didn't hurt nobody, right? Diarrhea is just part of life. Okay. $1 billion drug, right? If you can figure out a way, we can eat all we want to eat and not gain no weight, right? So that's the holy grail of America, right? Anyway, so the answer will be here. If we find the pill, it will absorb, it will stop these guys from doing their job. All right, large intestine, sucking water out of poo, okay? That's what it does. Okay, appendix, here's a weird one here. What does the appendix do? A little structure back here, I don't think it showed to you in the picture. Look, right here where the small dumps in the large, but you can't see right here, here's where there's a junction called sequence. We have an ascending, transverse, and descending colon. That little finger sticking off is a blind finger pouch in the large intestine. whose function was pretty much unknown, and we still debate about how function is debatable. The theory is that there are some good bacteria that hang out in here. So when you have a storm like we did last Saturday night, and it blows everybody's house away, you call out your storm shelter to live another day. That's storm shelter for good bacteria. When a storm blows through, okay? And that has been scientifically proven to be, it's thought to be a storm shelter for literally reserve good bacterium staying there. Great classical Jeopardy question. How many appendices have been to the moon? 0. So all the Apollo astronauts had theirs cut out by an unelective surgery. I mean, they had to have a surgery cut out. If this thing swells up and ruptures in space, you're dead. You're going to be basically poo-poo gets thrown all over your abdominal cavity. Bad bacterium, and it sets up. And I've had maybe 3 students in 30 years that had this rupture. Anybody have a friend that had that rupture? Because they went to the doctor, they were hurt, and they thought, you just got the flu or something, right? A little misdiagnosed. If that thing swells up like a balloon and blows, then you have to have your internal anatomy, your basically internal water hose put in there and wash your guts for a week or 2 with antibiotics to get all that bacteria off, because it can then spread everywhere. So maybe you never have a ruptured appendix. And by the time a lot of women having C-section, they'll go in there and cut that out for like $150, $200 more. You get like a 2-for-1 special. You get your tube tied, have a little junior delivered, and have your appendix taken out all at the same time. I'm gonna go ahead and do the gallbladder over here one day. Get the gallstone. You're gonna get the 4-for-1 special, right? Just saying, after you've had your 12th kid, it's time to stop, right? Let's have it. 6, 1, 2, okay. Anyway, that's pretty cool. Side note there, appendix. Other interesting side note, I did skip another good one here that it's probably going to come up in here, but we should probably mention this too. There's the appendix again. But the stomach ulcers, right? Up until like 1987, all stomach ulcers in every biology book, every A&P, every medical school, every nursing school. Stress is the only cause of all. Well, you knew that was specialist all that, right? Nothing's 100% in biology, right? I mean, think about it, man. I mean, everybody's going to respond differently. And so some couple of professors discovered that that's probably not the deal. And so they went and started pulling samples out of people's stomach who had ulcers, and they isolated the bacterium that they named Heliobacter, which is the genus. Pylori was the species name, and they took it out of the pylori part of the stomach. Grew in the laboratory, came to some college campus where they were really hungry, starving, poor students, and said, hey, anybody want to be part of an experiment? We'll give y'all $1,000 a piece. I'll just do this, okay? We're going to scope you, so make sure you don't have an ulcer, then we'll give you a glass of this, like, Gatorade, it's got the bacterium in it, we're going to give you an ulcer, but we're going to cure it with antibiotics. They did that, and they proved that the most 85–90% of ulcers are caused by bacterial infection, not strep. So instead of using Zantac and Tagamet, which were in 1987, I had to get some that had an ulcer, and they're $50 a pill. Now they're about a nickel a piece at Walmart on over the counter, because they lost their patent. But those are the 2 biggest drugs. One of them made you make more, cut off your acid, the other made you make more mucus. So both of these pills help with the problem with an ulcer, but none of them was addressing the cause of the ulcer, right? This bacteria causing you make too much acid is what it was. So pretty cool. They won a Nobel Prize for that too, by the way, like 10 years later, which rarely goes to something that's not like earth-shattering discovery. That's not like nobody's dying of ulcers per se. So, but they still got that. Pretty cool. Pancreas, we've already beat on that one. All it does with all these endocrine, insulin, glucagon, exocrine function, these juices for digestion and bicarbonate to neutralize the stomach, the pH of the chyme coming into the small intestine. Liver, whoa, man, multifunctions, right? Huge organ here, stores food, detoxifies drugs, goes on and on. Here we go. Here's the detoxification of blood. All the food, all the blood stream leaving the guts from the small and large intestines go directly to the liver via what's called a catechol vein structure. And we got detoxified drugs. I think one of the coolest things I remember in class learning this is like one of those aha moments. But do you ever wonder why you must take your prescriptions every day? Okay, here's why. The liver breaks them down everything. Good pills and heroin, whatever. Okay, good and bad drugs, the liver's breaking it down. Okay, and so the liver breaks down all drugs, so you have to take your birth control pills, or I take my sinus medicine every day to keep the level up, because the liver's going to break it down. Also stores vitamins and iron in here, produces the plasma proteins that maintain osmotic pressure, stores glucose as glycogen and then feeds you in between meals, produces urea, which is a carbon dioxide and water put together, and it is, excuse me, not carbon dioxide, but the carboxylic group of amino acids that have the amine group, NH2. So this is how we get rid of protein metabolism. So when you, a little side over here, so when we eat, all proteins have this. You remember this talking about this, but proteins have amino acids made the 20, all proteins are made out of 20 amino acids. They all have a carbon in the middle, an N group that's different for everybody, and a hydrogen and a carboxylic group, and they all have NH2 stuck on. So when we eat proteins, we have to cut this NH2 off. It grabs the hydrogen and becomes ammonia, which is very toxic. So the liver takes carbon dioxide and ammonia and makes a very safe compound called urea, throws it back in the bloodstream, and then your kidneys filter the urea out and make this compound y'all heard of called urine. Now, a cool moment there, right? So when you eat, and now look, seriously, it's really important for me too, so this is kind of cool. So everybody, good day, the last time you had a big steak. They steak Saturday night. I got up Sunday morning and my urine was yellow and smelled like urine because I metabolized the protein that night. You go out tonight and have 5 margaritas and 14 beers and 22 pounds of pretzels, but then you're peeing straight water, right? It's just white as can be, doesn't smell like anything because you've had no protein. So that kind of cool. But the main solid in urine is urea. That's where it gets its name. So urinating is a byproduct of protein metabolism. If you didn't know that, you learned something cool there, right? So y'all know the game, right? So anyway, so this organ makes the liver, and the liver makes urea. And of course, stores iron, vitamins, produces bile, break down fats, and red blood cells get broken down in the liver and the spleen into a chemical called bilirubin and bilirubin. This organ collects it out and sticks this into bile, and this is why bile is green. So bilirubin is break down red blood cells. Red blood cells get killed in 120 days. The liver throws this out, and the only way the only compound that makes it go to an open surface is bile. So bile is green. So here's one for you too. So poo-poo is the color it is because that's diluted green. Is the term of the bilirubin. So you learn all kinds of cool stuff today. And then it controls, regulates cholesterol levels. So this is a big one here. Have you ever seen little kids with jumpers that turn yellow, little babies? That's because the liver's not working yet. How many have had an uncle or a friend turn yellow? They're dying of liver failure. Matter of fact, guess what turns yellow before the skin does? Look at the whites of their eyes. If you got an uncle who's an alcoholic and his eyes are turning yellow, go buy some life insurance or he's going to die in the next 10 years. He's killing his liver. Okay. So anyway, hepatitis is a viral infection that can inflame the liver. Also can be, I don't eat raw oysters anymore. I used to love raw oysters when I was y'all age. But guess what happens out in Florida and stuff where all those condos are? When you flush the commode up there, that food goes right out there in that shell, and that oyster sucks it up, and then you got hepatitis and gonorrhea, they can have chlamydia. Nothing like going home with chlamydia and explaining you got that eating raw oyster. That's not going to fly in my house. I let my dad put my butt on that side, right? Okay. What's her name? Oyster, was that her name? What did you call her? What's her nickname here? But anyway, hepatitis and then cirrhosis of the liver is due to usually the alcohol poisoning. Another cool one here. So I'm doing this class one day, and I got this little girl who's really sweet, nice, beautiful little girl. But and I do not care what your race is. Okay, I do not care about this stuff. I want you to do well in my class. I want you to be a good citizen, pay taxes, good job, right? Be a good American citizen. But this little girl, I figured she was kind of probably mixed, something, because she had this kind of olive color, right? Kind of an olive color look. And we get the liver, and she starts crying, man. I'm like, okay, I ain't said nothing ugly to nobody. What's she crying for? And she raised her hand. Can I talk to the class? I'm like, sure. She said, look at me. Everybody looked at her. She said, what do y'all think I am? And everybody thought she was funny, her mom, maybe Asian, dad, Hispanic or something. She said, no, man, I am freaking so white and funny. If she did the identity thing, the DNA thing, she'd be 99% Swedish. She said, no, man, look, this is summer school. She said, I'm a whatever fraternity girl, a sorority girl at Ole Miss. I'm a junior. I have cirrhosis of my liver, I'm dying, I got hepatitis. She goes, I had sex with 2 guys, both of them have been tested before I got this. And so the only thing we can narrow it down to is I ate like four dozen raw orchards in Panama City for spring break 3 years ago. And then on the last day, they put signs up everywhere, hepatitis in the orchards. Sorry, don't be eating orchards. So she ate a slimy orchard and may die. That is really bad. And her skin was that kind of green color because it was the bilirubin, bilirubin built up in her skin. And she said, I probably got to have a liver in the next 4 or 5 years. Bad. It did kill her liver. So steam them babies, I actually get by them now and grill them on like a barbecue grill. Burn, at least that kills the viruses. The virus already there, this screws them up enough. But anyway, before we had a vaccine for this now, there is a hepatitis vaccine that everybody, if you end up going to nurse school or medical school, you have to take it. But this was the #1 killer of nurses in the 70s, in the early 70s, and the 70s. Because they would be given shots and prick themselves and get hepatitis from it. And we use recycled needles. Veterinarians still do. But I remember having the needle washers and stuff you'd see all the time. Right now, you know, they use the needle one time, break it, and dispose of it, right? Because of hepatitis and AIDS. Okay, and it can regenerate. So they can actually take a piece of the liver and give you a liver transplant and you'll grow more liver. We already talked about gallbladder, gallstones, that's very painful. Okay, they're showing, this is what the liver looks like and how the blood filters through it. So it does like these 6 different things, super important organ. What should we eat? Oh my gosh, celiac disease, right? Boy, a lot of people gluten-free, right? And a lot of people have this disorder, probably some other allergies there also. Enzymes to break food down, nothing much here, we're about through with it. This is showing absorption of sugars, proteins, and fats get put in the lacteal. So that was interesting. They get put in these little vesicles called chylomicrons, which are fat transportation mechanisms. They carry the fat into the bloodstream and to wherever it needs to be. You know, these are the food groups: sugars, proteins, fats. These are all different sugars we can eat. Carbs, and it is that cellulose that we like to eat on a diet because you can absorb it. Fiber is cellulose, right? Eat some fruit, eat more fruits and beans, and you get more fiber in your diet. You'll have more regular bowel movements, right? And that's good for you too. Fats, every diet, cut back on fats. Proteins, right? 20 amino acids, 8 essential ones that are required that the body can make the other 12. So you have to eat our proper, vegetarians have to watch out for that because not all vegetables have all 20 amino acids, but most beets have all of them. Obesity, right? Diabetes, type 2, where your type 1 is when you don't make insulin. Diabetes type 2 is your receptors don't work for insulin. And then we're not going to do a BMI, but there's tables of that. We can look at that. But we have an epidemic of both of these, especially type 2. And so that's a big deal in America. And then lipids, fats have been, cholesterol has been correlated to cardiovascular disease, right? So if you have high LDLs, then you have more blockage in your coronary arteries, and that's going to kill you. The HDL is actually a good one that clears those blood vessels. So you want to eat more sardines, tuna, and salmon that are high in HDL. I didn't know that. Still got 2 minutes. Vitamins and minerals, we're not going to cover them, but in A&P we would, but these are compounds that we can't make that we have to have in our diet in order for metabolism to work properly. And 20 different elements we need in our body. Pretty cool. Where are you going here? I was going to mention too, we got to recommend, but how many of y'all have seen some of these weight loss procedures? These are pretty interesting, right? Y'all seen some of this? Okay, so I got a friend one time that was in my class. This is a pretty cool one. Young man in my class. And he weighed about 600 pounds. So he literally was one of the